Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Daily Roto NBA Daily Fantasy Show. My name is Davis Maddock. I am joined by Christopher Pacheco. We have a 7-game NBA slate to run through here, and coincidentally, we have the Miami Heat at the Atlanta Hawks as our first game, Pacheco. And just before you and I hopped on air, we highlighted this as one of the potential rest spots. Feels like pretty much every single game or every single slate, we get one team mass resting. Trae Young is out for this game. That is already confirmed. He has a sprained ankle. So Clint Capella, Bogdan, Collins, unclear how many guys would, but this first game, definitely a potential rest spot.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't necessarily. Let's rephrase that. I wouldn't call it a rest spot because Atlanta is still fighting, obviously, for that pivotal 4-5 turn there in the East. They really don't. You don't want to finish sixth or below that in the East, because if not, you're going to have to face Brooklyn, Philadelphia, or Milwaukee. So Atlanta right now is kind of in that middle spot where you want to be, essentially, because you want to play the Celtics in that first round, or maybe even the Knicks if they're able to get a little bit closer to the 4 or 5 spot. So I wouldn't call it a rest spot, Davis. What's happening here is Trae is hurt. He turned his ankle the other night, so obviously he's out. But then we have Gallo as questionable in this slate as well, and so does Capella. He's questionable as well. So these are real injuries happening to these players. And obviously, it's not what you want going into a game against Miami, who's also fighting very much for playoff positioning. So this is certainly a game that matters a whole lot. We're going to have some level of value on the Atlanta side. We already have on someone like Brandon Goodwin, who should be the starting point guard tonight without Trae Young. The Miami side is going to look much cleaner, but the Atlanta side, certainly some big question marks.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, as it sits now, Goodwin gonna be super popular for tournaments, super popular in cash games, I would imagine. Very interesting here, though, looking at the Sims. Lou Williams about 7.5% owned on DraftKings. I mean, we've already seen with Trae Young out, he doesn't have a crazy minute ceiling, but he does have an insane usage ceiling where when he's in there, you could see like over 15 minutes, in the time that he's in, a 35% usage rate, a 40% usage rate when he's in there. So I do think sprinkling Lou in tournaments seems pretty good.
Yeah, I think so too. Personally think this comes down to sight. FanDuel priced Goodwin very appropriately at 5K. I think, they're essentially making that a tougher decision over there for sure. Lou Will is also 5,200 on FanDuel. So looks a little bit weaker of a play, frankly. DraftKings is 4,300. And yeah, he doesn't even need the usage rate you're talking about to come out as a potential tournament winner. Would I play Lou and Brandon Goodwin together? Probably not. Not that you can't do it, but I probably wouldn't. But I certainly think that Lou Will is a good call on DraftKings at 4,300.
Yeah. All right. On the Miami side of the ball, is Jimmy Butler questionable for this one? I just assume most days he has the Q tag. I don't think it would be a real one, but I think that looking at this line right now, we have Miami favored by 6 or 7, depending on your book. Feels like they'll probably play the full complement of guys. No one here really standing out to me as a big value.
Yeah, so Jimmy is not on the injury report, thankfully, and neither is Bam. So as of right now, we're looking at a healthy starting lineup for the Heat outside of obviously Victor Oladipo, who's going to remain out. Gabe Vincent is probable, but he's probably not going to be part of the rotation, and Tyler Hero is questionable. So that's really the bigger cue for Miami tonight. As far as DFS plays here, Jimmy's really expensive on DraftKings, nearly 10K. I still think I would chance him in tournaments. Not a great total for Miami or anything like that, but given the rates that I've seen out of Jimmy, I think he can pay off this tag. 9,300 feels much better on FanDuel, and you have to play 2 small forwards. So I would give that one a twirl. I'm okay with Bam. I think it's okay. I certainly don't love it. And with Jimmy in there, Kendrick Nunn's just not as strong of a play. So I probably won't go there, even though the price tag's okay.
Yeah. All right, let's go ahead and move to Boston at Brooklyn. Boston is without Kemba Walker in this game. They are without Jaylen Brown in this game. However, they do get Evan Fournier back, who I think, Pacheco, your minutes maybe look a little bit low on him right now, because I think they will I think that with both of those guys out, with both Jaylen Brown and Kemba Walker out, I think they will start Evan Fournier. Yep. And I would think Romeo Langford at 12. I don't know. Maybe you're right. Romeo Langford at more minutes than Fournier. I guess it would kind of depend. Also, I guess Fournier hasn't played in an NBA game now in 3 weeks probably, so his conditioning might not be too sharp. So maybe you're I don't. It would depend on starting lineup, but I do think Fournier is a little bit interesting for tournaments. Obviously, Marcus Smart, Tristan Thompson, Jason Tatum as well. Robert Williams announced out for this, continuing to be out for this game as well. But specifically, Tatum and Smart both look pretty interesting.
Evan Fournier actually had COVID, Davis. So that's the reason that he's been out. And, he's already been talking to Jason Tatum about the recovery and stuff like that. Because Tatum did not have a good time. I mean, he really didn't round into form after coming back for quite a while. So my expectation is that even if Fournier starts, there's going to be some limitations there. Listen, if we get a good report there that he's ready to play 30 or plus, I will absolutely change his projection. But it seems to me like early on he'll be limited. So that's the reasoning behind someone like Romeo Langford getting more minutes over Fournier, which from a fantasy perspective, Langford's just not – he doesn't do much. So it's really not much of a play. I'd much rather play Fournier if we were talking about a clean health bill. But you mentioned the relevant names here. It's Tatum. I think Marcus Smart certainly deserves a chance. Tristan Thompson's okay, but Tatum's really the big name here. His rates are going to be through the roof. It's now no Kemba and no Jaylen Brown. And in those situations, mid-30s usage rate is probably what's going to happen here as a median expectation. Yeah.
All right. Let's move on to the Boston side, or the Brooklyn side. So Kevin Durant is questionable tonight. He has a thigh bruise. You have him projected for 29 minutes. Not going to be a ton of value here, because what happens is all of the secondary Nets guys, Joe Harris, Landry Shamet, Bruce Brown, Blake Griffin, DeAndre Gordon, all of these guys have gotten priced up with the absence of Kevin Durant. Now Durant's back in, eating up rates, eating up minutes. And then the same is true for Kyrie. Kyrie is not priced appropriately for his non-Durant rates. So but the Brooklyn side of this game just looks like a big mess.
It does. The total at 116 is pretty darn good. But the challenge, obviously, is KD back. This is a non-back-to-back for Brooklyn as well. So from a minutes perspective and a rates perspective, everything is pretty full here. I wish Kyrie was priced, for KD being in there, but that's certainly not the case on DraftKings. He's 10-1, priced very, very full. Durant is 8,900 on FanDuel, which I found to be a pretty darn good price tag, and one that I think tonight I would chance in tournaments if he's in, regardless of what I hear on the minutes. I still think I'd give that one a chance. Even Kyrie at 9,700, it doesn't feel egregious on FanDuel. The challenge is on DraftKings, right? It feels like these guys are priced way too tight for everyone back. Yeah.
All right. Let's go ahead and move to the Clippers and Houston. No Kawhi Leonard for the Los Angeles Clippers tonight. Their guard rotation is back to normal. Reggie Jackson, Terrence Mann, Rajon Rondo, Luke Kennard, probably some garbage time minutes for Amir Coffey. I guess no Patrick Beverly in there. And then their forward rotation, pretty set. Marcus Morris plays a big chunk of minutes there. Nick Batum is his direct backup. Luke Kennard, backup shooting guard, backup small forward. Two Pats might get in there a little bit. And then DeMarcus Cousins as the backup center. Really you would think without Kawhi Leonard, there should be loads of excess value here. But really it's just Paul George and Marcus Morris because of the way they distribute the touches. And Paul George is a smash play tonight. I mean, we have him projected 27% owned on DraftKings, and still, not bad in terms of a leverage play, just making the optimals a huge chunk of the time.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like a big miss by the sites to not price him at like 10K without Kawhi in there. It's a great matchup against Houston, 117 total here for the Clippers. There's nothing really you're missing here. The one thing that could give me some pause is the blowout potential because PG is playing tonight as far as we know. So I think he's a great player, but the one thing that could kind of mess his value is if he doesn't get a fourth quarter rotation. Even then, you gotta play him tonight. I don't think you can avoid this.
Yeah, I'm with you. All right, so anyone else on the Clippers? Reggie Jackson, Marcus Moore. I mean, Reggie and Terrence Mann, I think you can play in tournaments as sprinkles, as leverage off of Paul George. And then obviously, if Reggie Jackson is having a good game, that means he's not passing the ball to Paul George and he's handling a ton of the ball handling stuff. So that would be that is a potential angle.
Yeah, it feels like with some of these guys, it creates conflicts. Like I certainly wouldn't play Paul George and Marcus Morris together, right? Frankly, I don't even know if I'd play Paul George and Reggie Jackson together. Those guys, they need to score points, like real life points, in order for them to deliver value, and so does Paul George. So it feels like there's some conflict there. I don't have an issue with any of the guys you mentioned, but with Paul George in there and playing regular minutes, the rates haven't gone up substantially, even without Kawhi out. Paul George is the one whose rates just go through the roof, and Marcus Morris as well on the usage side. So I'm okay with Morris. I think Reggie's okay at best. I think Mann is more of a reach at his price tags.
Yeah. All right. Moving on to the Houston side of the ball, we have John Wall in the lineup without Kevin Porter Jr. Kevin Porter Jr. health and safety protocols ruled out for a couple days. They've been starting this fella by the name of Armani Brooks Jr. at shooting guard. I can't proclaim to know anything about him, but I do think he will be a popular value play in this slate. A 10-point spread here. So maybe you're able to talk yourself into Houston not going into like full, playing DeQuan Jeffries minutes because they're losing by, 20 points at the end of the third quarter or whatever. But not really interested in Christian Wood, not really interested in Olynyk, not even really that interested in John Wall. I know we have a positive projection on John Wall, but in a blowout scenario, John Wall at his price gets impacted way more than Armani Brooks gets impacted. Like Armani Brooks can grind out 18 in regular non-garbage time and still might get the last rotation.
Yeah. Well, Brooks would have absolutely smashed last game if he would have made some shots. He did everything else outside of shoot decently. He profiles as like a guy that's going to shoot a bunch of threes. He doesn't really do a whole lot else. But in the last game, he did the other things and didn't shoot well. If he did, he would have scored over 30 fantasy points with ease. So that ceiling is kind of in play there. As long as he starts again, I think minutes in the 30s are probably coming. I mean, he didn't even play well last game. He still got those minutes. So it's pretty secure. But if he's going to be chalk, I certainly think that you might want to play someone else. The one thing I disagree with you on is John Wall. I really like him. I'm hoping that he comes in a little bit lower owned our stuff is saying right now. I don't think you can just automatically discount this Houston side on the 7-gamer. I think the Kevin Porter thing is pretty significant for John Wall's rates, and I think his rates are going to be pretty darn massive in this one. It's just a matter of, one, is the game close, and two, if he can cash in on those rates, I think a big performance could be coming.
All right, let's go ahead and move on to the Cleveland Cavaliers playing at the Charlotte Hornets. I got nothing here. Sexton and Garland are, you know what? Like I think they're appropriately priced to take stabs on them in tournaments because they're going to be single digit owned. They each have a lot of upside in an individual game basis. Kevin Love being back, playing 28, 29, 30 minutes a night is obviously bad for them. Like, clearly it's not good for them to be sharing the floor with someone who has a 25% usage rate. But I don't think anyone on them, no one on the Cavs is a core play. No one is a cash play. And in fact, this is a pretty gross game, low total, but a tight spread at least.
Yeah. So the one thing I think I disagree with you on Garland and Sexton is, as of right now, Love's return to playing bigger minutes hasn't really impacted them on their rates, which I think has been pretty great and has allowed them to still kind of be relevant in DFS from time to time. Love himself is actually struggling a little bit on the usage rate. So those guys, I believe, are certainly impacting him. And that's why I think from a ceiling perspective, Love would need one of those guys to be out, one of those guards. But it doesn't look like that will be the case tonight. So, yeah, you're right. There's not a whole lot going on here. I certainly wouldn't play anyone from cash from the Cleveland side. And I think in tournaments, if you find a decent tag on Sexton and Garland, and maybe Jared Allen, if he was like 6K or something like that, I might give it a chance. If you don't find decent price tags, I'm okay moving on from this game, from the side altogether.
Yeah. All right. The Charlotte side of the ball with Rozier, Bridges, Graham, Washington, McDaniels all healthy. These guys were a source of value for a couple weeks. Yeah. Now the prices and the rates have normalized, right? We have a good idea of what their rotation without LaMelo and without Gordon Hayward looks like. We have a good idea of how the rates work, which also means the DK prices are going to be much more representative of actual value. In terms of guys to take on tournaments, you made the point yesterday. Devonta Graham takes a bunch of shots, but just does not make any of them. That actually does make him a pretty good MME sprinkle, but no one on Charlotte projects for more than 6% ownership. Yeah, but Graham and Washington, I guess, would be the ones to take stabs on with the combination of how they could run hot, both on usage and in minutes.
Yeah, so I think, man, Terry is just 8,700 on DraftKings. It needs now like a fantasy performance in the 40s, or he's busting. Like, he's not getting there. You know, that's certainly putting a lot of pressure. But yesterday his rates were incredible. He just shot really poorly, and then Charlotte got ran out of the gym, right? And that's what's going to happen. In games where Terry can't really assert himself, they're just not going to be able to really compete. PJ Washington really didn't do much either, and he played 13 minutes yesterday. That sort of downside is horrible. And at these price tags, right, he's 6,300 on DraftKings, 6,500 on FanDuel. It's asking for him to start and play minutes in the 30s pretty consistently. So that one worries me a little bit, especially with this troll Werner Carey Jr. still starting for Charlotte. So for me, I think Terry is, man, it's more of a FanDuel play. DraftKings is making it tough, but I'm not. I think I'd still give him a chance over there. I think Bridges, if you find a decent tag, which I can't seem to find one, would be okay. Graham, FanDuel, I don't think I'm doing it on DraftKings.
Yeah. All right. Washington, Oklahoma City. No Rui Hachimura for the Washington Wizards, Russell Westbrook. He just gets a triple-double every single night, Pacheco. It's like you just start out assuming that he's going to get a triple-double. He has not gotten a triple-double twice over the last month of the season. We have slight positive values on Bradley Beal, Davis Bertans, Raul Neto, and Daniel Gafford. I think that probably Gafford and Neto look like pretty thin plays that I'm not as interested playing in single entry 3 max MME. I would look for alternatives to those guys, but Beal is great leverage on Russell Westbrook, who we know will get mega owned. That being said, Russell Westbrook, like pretty much the best play of the slate. Revenge game here against Oklahoma City. Gets a triple-double every night. Like, he's like the opposite of Luka Doncic. Like, every night Luka Doncic gets 45, but is projected for 60. Every night Westbrook is projected for 60, and he gets 60.
Right. That's that. It's a big difference. It's 60 or above for Russ. It's a big projection here, and it makes all the sense in the world. He's rebounding like a freaking maniac. It's been probably over 20 games now where his rebounding rate has been over 19%. It's insane. And even if Dort plays, he probably will avoid that matchup because Dort will be on Bradley Beal for essentially the whole game here, right? So it's a great matchup, and it's at OKC. Hopefully Dort plays on the OKC side, Davis, because that's the challenge. I just struggle to find this game competitive if he can't give it a go. OKC is just tanking hard.
They're so bad, man.
They're just so bad, brother. Yeah. It's bad. So I hope Dort plays. I literally think this game will be more competitive if that dude can be out there. I think Westbrook's an awesome play. Beal, not as great of a play as Westbrook. I think all of us understand that now. But he's good leverage. Outside of that, man, Neto's showing up as a strong little value on both sides. Ceiling-wise, that's scary. I mean, in the starting lineup, he just doesn't do much because Westbrook and Beal do everything. So it's not that the rates are wrong on his stuff. It's just that I don't see many fantasy points beyond 24.
Yeah, I definitely think you're right. Just because the usage will not be there. There's just no way. So on the Oklahoma City side of the ball, if you're looking for bringbacks to use for competitive games, Dort, Bazley, Pokusevski, the usage, this lineup that they're running out there, if Dort plays, there will not be enough usage for Moses Brown, for Theo, for Roby, for Kendrick Williams, or Svi starting, depending on which direction they go there. But Poku and Dort, Dort, the rates will catch up with Dort eventually. They will. Like, eventually our stuff is going to be showing Dort as a value at 6,800. I guess the problem is, though, he takes every other game off. He has a good game, and then they say that his shoulders hurt, so he can't play the next game. But I think that the usage rate and the assist rate and the minutes even could be all a shade low in a competitive game. And then Pokusevski as well. The usage rate, I think, could be a little bit higher, or at least has the ability to get higher in game. But those are the only two guys. Even Bazley, I actually think Bazley is the one who loses the most in this lineup. I think Pokusevski takes shots and Dort takes shots directly from Darius Bazley. Yeah,
I mean, I listen, we're now at 32.5 fantasy points on Dort. His usage rate without SGA this season has been 27.8%. We're at 27.2. Yeah. I mean, we are as close as we've ever been on Dort without SGA out there. And over the last 5 games that he's actually played, usage rate has been right around 28.5%. To your point of it could get even a little bit more extensive, I think he's the number one bringback in this game. On the OKC side, number one bringback on FanDuel, he's 5,700. That is a fantastic price for this guy. I just really hope he plays. Outside of that, you're right in that he takes away too much from the other dudes. And we've seen that be a real detriment to Maladon's value. So in games where Dort plays, I'm not really onto Maladon. And I think that's the case tonight, even though
he just has been replaced. He is an off the ball guard. He is not. Their offense was so bad with him as the primary ball handler that they were like, look, we gotta get Dort the ball. We got a question here. Samurai Piggy, thoughts on Gafford and Bertans as value? I think whichever one of them is lesser owned seems fine. But again, what Pacheco just said about Neto is true of these guys as well. They just are not going to have the ball in their hands that much playing with Beal and with Westbrook.
And he's also talking about FanDuel value as well. And Gafford is $5,300 over there. I think that's a bad play, frankly. I'm just going to call it out as a bad play. Neto is $3,600 as point guard eligible. And yeah, that's kind of what we're talking about. He's showing us a good value. My challenge is not that. It's any ceiling beyond that. I think he will struggle with that immensely.
Yeah. All right. Denver, Golden State. I think this should be a good daily fantasy game. Love Jokic against the basically centerless Warriors. I think Michael Porter Jr. is a good play. I think Aaron Gordon and Will Barton are good tournament stabs at their prices. Don't think they're in the single entry 3 max mix. And then I think a great MME idea today obviously is the Nikola Jokic and Steph Curry correlation. You use the key boost tool, give him a +5, give him a +10. Also think Wiggins at 6,600. He's I think a pretty good stab because I think that this game is so important for the Nuggets and for the Warriors. We're gonna get to this spot later on in the season. We talked about it a little bit yesterday. Some of these games are going to be so important for seeding purposes that we're going to see starters minutes really get extended. I think this will be one of the spots. And the Warriors are pretty thin on NBA players. Guys like Nico Mannion and Smailagic are making up their bench, but they are pretty thin on NBA quality players tonight. So wouldn't be a surprise to see Draymond go from 33 to 36 minutes, Wiggins 36 to 38, Oubre 33 to 35, so on and so forth. I think this is probably the best game stack game.
Yeah, man, this is a massive game for Golden State. It's just massive. It's an important game for Denver, but this is a massive game here for Golden State. They just can't afford to lose. They got teams behind them. Can't afford losses down the stretch. And yeah, you mentioned the extensive injury report. Now it's Bazemore, who's joining the sidelines there on top of Damian Lee. Those are 2 rotational players, and Bazemore had been starting for Golden State of late. Those are some obvious key losses here. Thankfully for them, they should be getting Juan Toscano Anderson tonight. He's showing as Q. Hopefully he'll be able to give him some minutes, because if not, this is looking really, really tough. I think the best thing I can say about Andrew Wiggins is that I do think there's a shot here for 38 to 40 minutes, a legitimate 38 to 40 minutes tonight out of him. And very similar thing on Kelly Oubre. What I don't like about Wiggins is that his usage rate and just rates in general take too big of a hit with Steph Curry on the floor. And that's really my drawback on him. That's why I really wouldn't play him in tournaments. I think he's been a consistent fellow this season. Wouldn't mind him in cash if he had the right price. I don't think he shows up as a tournament winner in this one. I do think that Steph Curry could show up as a tournament winner. And that's going to be the case essentially every night he takes a court moving forward. Big minutes, monster usage out of the guy. The other night against Washington, he didn't deliver value, but he shot really, really poorly. And that's going to be the case with Steph. If he shoots really well, he'll do great. If he doesn't shoot well, he's not going to get to value.
Yep. All right. Final game, Memphis at Portland. We have Jaren Jackson Jr. back for the Memphis Grizzlies. How many minutes did he play last night, Pacheco? We have him for 20. How many did he get in last night?
he played 17 a couple of nights ago. So thinking 22, 23 is not out of the realm of possibilities.
Yeah. Which really doesn't, I mean, Jaren Jackson Jr., we're not playing him, but that negatively impacts Clark, Winslow, Kyle Anderson, Xavier Tillman. Tillman, I still think is a little bit interesting for tournaments because he is actually going to be needed defensively against Cantor and Nurkic, and I think that he has upside beyond his minutes. But I also could see this being a Ja Morant spot where he goes from 33 to 35, 36 minutes, something like that. Also, the whole thing with Morant all year is he cannot shoot. He's like 26% on three for the year, but like I still think he can shoot. So just playing him on nights when he does jam in, is able to make 50% of his shots or something like that. And then on the Portland side of the ball, Nurk, we have so are you expecting Nurk to just not be on a minutes limit in this game?
So his new minutes limit is now in the high 20s. That's essentially what he played last time. So that's our expectation moving forward.
Okay, yeah, that makes some sense. Anyone else in this game that you are super interested in? Like, do we like Dame for tournaments? McCollum, because this is is a high total, tight spread, should be pretty low ownership. I mean, Dame, McCollum, Norm, Covington, all of those guys are going to be single digit. Xavier Tillman, Ja Morant, those guys. Well, Tillman could see himself get a little bit of ownership. Kyle Anderson, Dylan Brooks. I mean, literally all of these guys. Like, if you were going to draw up kind of the perfect setup for a game, it would be super high total, last game of the night, so that people don't have time to react to any injury news breaking, close spread. Portland plays pretty fast. I guess Memphis doesn't play that fast, but this game is pretty interesting for tournaments.
Well, this is the best game environment of the night.
Yeah,
this is the best game environment of the night. Massive game for both teams. Portland, they've been on a slide for quite a while, and Memphis is eighth in the Western Conference, Davis. So, and with San Antonio and Golden State right behind their tail. So, this is a game that both teams are definitely going to put their best guys out there for a bunch of minutes and try to go out there and win. Memphis side is difficult, and I don't think is that's great for tournaments. Reason for that being that Jaren Jackson being back directly impacts Xavier Tillman. The way these guys played last game was Jackson was essentially Tillman's primary backup. And then Brandon Clark was playing more like a four role and backing up someone like Kyle Anderson. And, now that these guys are direct backups like that, that is really, really difficult for a minute ceiling to be achieved. We've seen that for Kyle Anderson for quite a while. It's when Winslow and Clark and all those guys are out that he plays a lot. When those guys are in there, that's just not a reality for him. So I'm worried about the Memphis ceiling minutes on everyone outside of like Ja and maybe Dylan Brooks. I think everyone else has some risk into them. The Portland side, I feel much better about. That's because they are going to play 9 guys at you every night, and that's what they're going to do tonight. Even if Derrick Jones Jr. doesn't play, they could play Rondé Hollis-Jefferson or someone like that. So they'll give you 9. And I do feel, pretty good about Dame and CJ on FanDuel. DraftKings price these guys really tough. I struggle with them as single entry 3 max plays, especially with Nurkic playing more. Their rates are going to be a little bit more in flux. So you're looking for some price discounts now on those guys. Yep.
All right. There we go. That should do it. Your favorite tournament play today is who? Your favorite guy?
Wow. Well, let me not talk about someone chalky, right? Because we want to avoid that.
I'll give mine out. I think it's either Curry if we get to lineup block and our Sims and stuff have him under 15%, and if Curry projects over that, it is Dort matched with Russell Westbrook. It is Dort as your Russell Westbrook bring back, because Dort will be 3% owned or whatever, but will be a big part of keeping that game close.
Yeah, that I like that call. For me, this is the challenge I'm seeing here. I want to say John Wall. The challenge that I'm seeing is that as of right now, the ownership projection on Wall and Curry is essentially the same. That's bad.
I don't think that will hold, though. My guess is Wall goes down. Wall will probably be about there in MME, but in single entry and 3 max, people are going to be much less likely to click on Wall than they are on Curry.
But do you see what I'm saying? If Curry and Wall are even in the same conversation in ownership, that's just bad, and you really should do Curry. If I'm getting a 10% or less on John Wall, I really like that play tonight. And I do think Dort on DraftKings, as I'm FanDuel, he'll get the ownership. But on DraftKings, I think that's a really good call in tournaments as well. I didn't mean to bypass this question. Someone asked us if Millsap is like a value play on GPPs tonight. I don't think so. They have Aaron Gordon, JaMychal Green in that rotation. They can play Michael Porter at the 4 as well if they choose. I don't think Millsap is a play in GPPs or in cash games.
Yep, I'm with that. I think I'd rather some of the Warriors bit guys, like I'd rather play Juan Toscano Anderson if I'm looking for ways to get weird in that game. Oubre, Draymond, those wings. So yeah, there we go, everyone. That's going to do it for us here today. Of course, Pacheco will be on the 1s and 2s, working on the projections, keeping you guys updated on news all the way until the last game locks, and we'll be back next week.